Hey there everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about building a custom stronghold in Minecraft. So we're going to be watching me throughout the process of building the first stronghold for Pandemia. This stronghold is going to be available at the download link in the description, again part of the Pandemia project. And I figured it would make sense to kind of talk about my process for building this thing, because throughout the course of building it, I learned some things and kind of had to come up with some techniques that I hadn't used before, and I thought it might be useful to share what I've learned. So I wanted to show you a little bit about what this thing is going to look like before I jump into the time-lapse, because as you'll see, it's kind of tough to see what's going on during the time-lapse, but I'll do my best to kind of explain and narrate as we go. So I think that it's really important with any build, especially something like this, to start off by planning it out. So here I'm just sketching everything out with wool, and before doing this I essentially wrote down a list of all the different rooms that I wanted to have. I came up with how many different levels I wanted to have. I went with 4 levels, with one kind of lower level than that, which we'll see in a minute here. And I basically just made a list of the rooms that I wanted and what level I wanted them on and roughly where I wanted them in relation to one another. So by using different colored wool here, I'm able to kind of visualize which levels are where, and at a glance quickly tell, okay, red is my 4th level, orange is 3, yellow is 2, and blue is my top level. And I'm also using purple wool to denote where I want to have stairwells or ladders to move between the levels. So now that I have everything planned out, I can actually start building the first room, and I started with the Great Hall. So inspiration wise, I kind of wanted to do something sort of like a dwarven mine type feel with some medieval castle influences as well. It's not strictly one or the other, I just knew that I wanted something sort of medieval with a lot of fire and rock and pillars, and that way it would kind of feel like a normal Minecraft stronghold but with a little bit of a different twist. And for me, it's really important to have something to go off of in terms of a reference, whether it be a dwarven mine or a medieval castle, so that I can kind of make sense of the flow of the building and know what rooms to put where. And otherwise, I don't have much direction. So I think it's really important to choose some references, or maybe find some photos that you really like and try to replicate them, or just draw inspiration from them. Another thing I knew I wanted to do with this build was essentially have it get rougher as it went down. So up top here we have a great hall and some barracks, and it's relatively nice. It's kind of square and pristine, and maybe this was in use more recently than some of the other layers. And then as we go down, it gets a little bit rougher. As you'll see as we get to the lower levels, there's a lot more cracked stone, and everything is just a little bit more cave-like. So I would imagine that maybe they started up top and then kind of dug down as they needed to. Also thinking about kind of the lore, the story behind this place. If it's a stronghold, obviously there's going to be an end portal there. So how did that come about? Is this something that they discovered? And I think that the story I'm going with here is basically that, maybe a civilization built this little fortress and then kept tunneling down and down and eventually found this portal. Maybe they weren't quite sure what it was, and they built some tunnels and some fortifications around it. So here I'm constructing the library, which is obviously a pretty integral part of any stronghold. And I wanted this to be sort of the largest room. It's a bit of a focal point in the building, even though it's a few layers down. So I spent a lot of time on this to get it right, and although the time-lapse is moving pretty quick, and you're not really able to see what's going on inside too much, I just wanted to make sure that there was a lot of opportunity for detail, a lot of little nooks and crannies to hide loot and things like that, and that it felt like a really interesting space that players might want to change and kind of customize and make their own. So part of the kind of difficulty with building this stronghold is obviously I'm building it on a flat world above ground, so I have to paste it underground. And something that I realized about halfway through was that if I pasted the whole structure, if I selected essentially a square around the structure and then pasted it underground, if I pasted it with the air blocks, then there would essentially be a cube underground with this structure sort of just floating in it. But if I pasted it without the air blocks, then obviously all of the air inside the structure would be filled up. So what I had to do was cover all of the kind of passageways with the yellow glass, which you're seeing here, so that I could see into it. And then I just filled up every single air block inside the structure with pink wool. So you can kind of see at the bottom there, I'm just using a brush to create spheres of pink wool, and just using World Edit and some other tools to get this thing totally full of pink wool so that every single air block is accounted for. And what this allows me to do is essentially use that pink wool as a sort of a placeholder for an air block. So I can paste the structure in without the air blocks underground so that the caves kind of meet it and it's not just floating in space. And then I can remove all of that pink wool with World Edit or another command, and I can replace it with air. So that way I know that the interior of my structure will have the air blocks that I want it to, but I'm not gonna again have this just weird floating structure in the middle of a cave, which wouldn't look good. And the structure should be integrated into the cave. I want it to be exposed in places, but not everywhere. So the last thing I built here is the portal room, and I built this in a separate area because I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to use this design, and I ended up modifying it a little bit and changing a few things, but overall I kind of like it. I think that look-wise, I wanted this to feel a little bit different than the rest of the build. I wanted it to feel like this was not constructed by the same people who built the fortress, and maybe they found this portal and then built some fortifications around it. And you'll see I kind of cover it up in obsidian. I decided to swap that obsidian out for stone just because it looked a little better and it felt a little weird to have this big obsidian structure underground. And I think it also hides it a little bit better. So after I finished up the portal room, I went through and did a little bit more detailing. And I think this is a really important thing to do after you get everything kind of outlined, is go through and just take away blocks, place blocks, and make it feel a little bit more organic. It's really easy when you're building a large structure to kind of just have everything be really straight. And it's important to go back and kind of rough things up, add those details that really do make a difference, and make the building feel a little bit more lived in. So like I said at the beginning of the video, this is available for download on Pandemia, and I don't want to tell you exactly where it is because I think that a lot of you are probably looking to find it on your own. So I'm going to put a little bit of a teaser at the end of the video here in a few seconds. So if you don't want to see anything, go ahead and click away from the video now, but I'm going to put just one shot to kind of give you a hint at where this might be.